Eu tinha levantado a mão porque
I had raised my
é
hand,
uma pergunta
actually,
assim para
to
todos.
ask a question
And then I can rephrase in
to
English if
both of
you
you.
want. But uma pergunta para o Paulo como
It's a question
escritor,
for Paulo as an author,
ficcionista, para
as
Alison
a
como
fiction
tradutora
writer,
e outras
and
pessoas que estão
a
aí
question
que
to
também
Alison
fazem
as a
tradução
translator,
livre.
and to people
Porque
here who translate.
se eu entendi bem,
If I understand,
Alison, eu sei que eu posso falar em português com você. É, Você foi
if I
contratada para
understand
traduzir o
correctly,
livro
you were
depois do
hired to
filme.
translate the
Então,
book
foi em função do
after
filme.
the film, right?
Então,
So that it was
a
due to the
pergunta que eu
film that the
tenho,
book
porque
was
eu estou lembrando
translated.
agora,
And
lembrei
I
também do
just remembered
o livro que você vai
a
traduzir,
book
ou está
you were
traduzindo,
writing, you were
Ainda Estou
translating
Aqui.
actually. I'm
Também
Still
acho que
Here,
como
based on
em
I'm Still
função,
Here, the film,
esse interesse foi em
right?
função do filme,
And I
né?
think that the
Então, a
interest
pergunta
came out of the
geral
success
para
of the
todo
film.
mundo
So this is a question for everyone here,
o que que
actually.
faz um livro, pensando principalmente, especificamente na literatura
When we
brasileira, o
think
que que
of
faz
Brazilian
um livro
literature,
da literatura
what
brasileira
makes a Brazilian
vendível ou
literature book
vendável,
become
marketable,
sellable or marketable
no mercado de língua inglesa?
in the English-speaking
Era isso,
market?
eu queria escutar de todos.
I wanted to hear from you.
I wish I knew. I wish I had a really good, succinct answer for you. It definitely, I can't remember what year the film came out. I know it came out. It was
2002. Yeah.
2002. Okay, so it was in the running for the Oscar the year before I began to translate it. And then for some reason that I can't explain, it was going to be in the running again a year from then. And of course, I wasn't able to finish the translation in time, but the film was actually in the running for an Oscar 2 years. And so, yes, that generated a lot of, energy and buzz around the book as well, because, they love a tie-in. What makes something sellable, relatable? I think quite often books are sold based on the story that is told to the publishers by agents and translators and the people actually, involved in taking things abroad. So it's, how we summarize the book, the sample translations, quite often I find that editors will see a book once it's been translated and be very surprised because it's not what they expected, because however the book was sold and packaged up wasn't, it just didn't really correspond to what they thought it might be. I've also seen books that have been massive bestsellers that have sold a lot of copies for different reasons, cultural acceptance in their own culture, or because the author is very famous for other reasons, and those books sell a lot, and then they kind of fall through the cracks once they're translated into English, because the author doesn't have that same social currency in the other countries. All kinds of reasons, I think.
Yeah. I think sometimes championing someone who can champion your book, a well-known writer. I think the case of Clarice Lispector, who until I would say maybe 15 years ago was not that well known in the UK. And I think the translations, not as good as now. Alison translated one of Clarice's books, and I think the other translations by Stefan yes, and Benjamin Moser, who also wrote an amazing biography by Clarice. So now and then also these translations, some of them they had amazing introduction by well-known writers like Colin Toynbee, Alice Smith. So I think that helps, doesn't it? And now if you go to a bookshop where there is like Don't Bookshop in the UK that you've got divided by countries, when you see Brazil, there's always a Clarice book, whereas 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there was never. So
yeah.
So there's
yes, and that was the fruit of a very systematic project on behalf of Benjamin Moser and
Ben Moser. Yeah, he was
New Directions, because he wrote an incredible biography of Clarice, and then they set about systematically translating every single one of her books, and over a period of time. So now she's firmly established, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes a publisher will, they'll say, okay, we'll take a punt on this book by this writer, And then the next book comes out and maybe doesn't sell quite as well, or, you know, it hasn't won a prize, and they go, I might skip this one. And then, you know, several years later, they might do another one by the same author. And so it can be quite patchy. And I think, you know, for an author to become really established in translation, quite often you need that really kind of consistent push.
Well, like Christina said,
Okay.
award-winning film.
Yes.